happy with the sheeting, except for these two spots right here where they're buckled. Everything else seems to fit pretty good. But how am I going to fix this? So right now my idea is to, you can see it's a little bit of an overlap here, is to cut away the sheeting to get this to kind of sit together, and then go underneath with some fiberglass. So maybe 1 ounce or 1.5 ounce fiberglass. After that cures, I can come back in with some epoxy and micro balloons and fill in any gap right here. And I think that will be good, except I don't know how well it's going to flow with the other sheeting. So let me, oh, and the other thing I need to work on, I'm going to do that first, is to remove the excess along the bottom here, and then try to get that stringer. There's a stringer glued in, and that stringer stays with the top part of the sheeting, particularly for the hatch that I cut out. At this point, I'm going to add the stringer from here back to here on both sides. This marks where the hatch would come off, and I really don't want to get any glue and a stringer that would glue these two pieces together. So I'm going to try to get a stringer in here. This stringer actually would go all the way back to the horizontal, or to the tail feathers. And at the same time, I'm going to try to correct this. Here's what we have. I went ahead and added the stringer here, then went back and added some filler. It's still drying. Added a little bit of filler here, it needed it. Added my stringer back at this point. On the real airplane, it appears that the top is sheet metal, and then starting from right about here down, it's fabric. Fabric also extends basically right along this line right here. So I'm going to use this stringer as my demarcation line. It appears it's a smooth transition between the sheet metal and the fabric. It's hard for me to see an overhang, say the sheet metal over the fabric, so I'm going to have to probably try to blend these two in together. I think I can do it. This right here is the area that is puckered. So yeah, I sanded it, get it to where it would kind of made it pretty well. Maybe I won't have to put fiberglass on the inside and do the old epoxy thing, which is nice, saved me some weight. I do have some filler on it now. I don't think it's going to be quite a totally smooth area, but fortunately I believe the canopy comes kind of down in this area right here, so maybe that'll help hide it. To fill in this little small chip out right here, I'm going to do something that I'm sure most people will frown on, but I use it for areas like this that typically aren't seen They're covered over, and it's definitely something you cannot do on a structural basis. It doesn't work. I think it's too brittle for that. But I'm going to use baking soda, and it'll fill the gap nicely. The one thing about baking soda and CA is it sands like concrete. You can forget about trying to sand it smooth. So the one trick that I use to make a smoother surface, and this is going to be on the outside, so you want this side right here to be smooth, is I'll cover the area with some masking tape. And then we'll go in, and you're not going to be able to see this, but I just take a little bit of baking soda, a straw, and stick some in the gap, and then hit it with thin CA. It will fume up pretty badly, so if you're allergic to, like I am, to CA, you probably want to have a nice fan blowing over the area. Now the inside here is pretty rough, but when we peel the tape off, the outside should be nice. Now it didn't quite get CA all the way in. I don't think I hit it with quite enough. So it's not quite as smooth as it can be. I didn't quite get enough CA on it. But this little bit will sand all right. 60 grit paper. And that'll work. I mean, this is going to be covered with fiberglass, so this will work nicely. Again, non-structural. I would not do this for any sort of structural gaps, but for, I guess you call it, cosmetic gaps that are still going to be covered, works okay. This gap right here is another instance where I'm going to use baking soda. I can't really get to it from underneath, so I'm going to put baking soda in, but I'm going to make sure that it doesn't sit above the sheeting, because then that would create a problem. All I need it to do is just kind of tie the stringer and the balsa side together. It's not really structural. Now that the bigger gap is filled, I can go in with the lightweight filler and fill in the smaller stuff. The next thing that I'm working on is the forward wing mounting plate. It's also a lamination of 2 pieces of 3mm light ply and carbon fiber. I've marked center lines, well, center line for the fuselage, and then this is the center line between the leading edge of the wing. And so now what I need to do is to, before I glue this in, find the 2 holes for the wing mounting dowels. Now this is where the instructions actually have you build a fuselage first and then build the wing and then come through the front here and drill your holes all the way back for your wing dowel. I don't have a drill bit long enough for that. So that's why I did it this way. So if I get the center lines lined up, then what my plan to do to find the holes to drill for the mounting plate is to mark the end of the dowels with some China marker. Then try to transfer some of that China marker to that mounting plate. Try to rock it a little bit back and forth, try to transfer. All right, I think I do have a tiny bit. So yeah, I do have a tiny miss. That one's a little bit bigger. And then here's this one. And what I'll do is I'll move these dots up to the center line for the wing, because I'm pretty sure the dowels are on the center line of the wing. And I think that will get me pretty close. All right, moment of truth. Holes drilled. I don't think it'll fit all the way in, but let's see how well I did. All right, well, I think it's going to fit okay. I still need to make a couple adjustments. One, I have not yet trimmed down the leading edge. It just needs to be flattened out to go against here. And the ply plate here sticks out past the curvature in the wing. So what I'll need to do is sand a recess in the leading edge of the wing to fit into here, and then still have the leading edge of the wing fit in here. Yeah, he's doing better now. He's able to chase that tennis ball like nobody's business. All right, I sanded the leading edge, middle part of the leading edge, so it fits up against the plate. Still not quite enough. See, I have this little area right here where the wing contacts the plate. I guess I didn't quite get this former right here in quite the correct position. So to fix that, I'm just going to mark each side and then sand a little recess in the wing so it fits up against that plate, and then the leading edge of the wing will fit into the cutout. It's not quite as flush as I was hoping it would be. I think I'm going to have probably a little bit of trimming to do, which I find to be kind of odd because the sheeting is actually thinner than the sheeting that the plan called for. So I thought I'd actually have a little bit of a gap. But let me get this to where the leading edge will fit into its recess, and we'll see how it goes. Real quick, I did do a test checking the distance from the wingtips back to the tail. Tail's still not glued together, but I got a little pin back there, and surprisingly and quite happily, it is spot on. Let's see if I can keep it that way. Still having a little bit of difficulty fitting this wing. I've sanded curve from here to back here on both sides, and I'm still sitting about this far off the saddle. So I think what may be at play here are these two holes. I think they might be sitting too far down. So I'm going to try to relieve them up a little bit and see if that helps. I'm not going to do it with the plate. I'm just going to do it with this 1 or 3 mm light ply and see if that helps solve this problem. So the issue I'm having is you can see the trailing edge sitting quite far off the back of the wing saddle. It's about 3/8 of an inch, and it's really quite much. And I was perplexed by it. I couldn't understand why. And then I was looking at the end of the wing, and it dawned on me. When I cut out my templates for my ribs, I went to the outside of the line. Now, these lines are about 1/16 of an inch thick. So I went to the outside of the line, and in effect, that has created a rib that's roughly upwards of 1/8 of an inch too wide. And even though the sheeting I'm using is not as thick as the plan sheeting, it's really creating problems. Even though I built the wing spot on to the plans, two problems. One, which I've already somewhat talked about, the joint of the wing to the wing saddle. Now I have managed to get the leading edge up into the wing saddle fairly well on both sides. That's pretty good for me. But trailing edge still sits pretty low on the wing saddle. Now right now the fuselage is just resting on the wing, but it is as far down as it will go. The other issue is somehow I built the wing about 1/2 inch too long and chord. If I extend the trailing edge of the flap out here to the fuselage, just where this little tick mark is, the flap should come right in to the edge here of the wing saddle. So, and that's 1/2 inch difference. So somewhere along the way I've built in 1/2 inch. Now I have checked and double checked all of the measurements. For example, the tip from the leading edge to the trailing edge is 10 7/8, and this is 10 7/8. It's spot on. Looking at rib 2 actually rides pretty much right along underneath the fuselage here. So I really can't get it completely in position, but if I put the leading edge up here at about where the sub-trailing edge is, and look at the trailing edge, well, that's about right. If you add the sheeting top and bottom, it's going to come to a point right about, probably right about here. So it's really maybe 1/4 of an inch too long. But somehow it ends up coming out to being about 1/2 inch too long. I'm not going to build a new wing to fix that. I can make it look right once I make the belly pan underneath. I can add a little probably balsa block or something to fit in between here, sand it, and it'll probably look about right, but it won't be right compared to the real airplane. So first thing to take care of is this gap. It's going to require sanding, probably about from where my little tick mark is here, just forward of the apex, and back to roughly here. It's just going to require a lot of sanding and shaping and test fitting, and will probably take me a couple hours or longer. I'll need to make up a sanding tool. It will probably be a big piece of PVC pipe that can span both sides of the wing saddle. You know, one of the key things to make sure I do is take the same amount of material off both sides of the wing saddle so the wing doesn't sit cattywampus laterally. It took about an hour and a half of sanding and trial fitting, and I have the wings sitting fairly nicely here in the wing saddle. It's not quite perfect in every spot, but epoxy and micro balloons will take care of that before covering. And I'm going to show you the other side. This dark area you see right here, that's China marker that's left over, so it's really not that big of a gap. Both sides actually fit fairly nicely, and I think it's sitting pretty well across the span So the next thing to check was the incidence. So I'll put a incidence meter on, and it's showing maybe just slightly positive from 0. So I think I'm finished up with this part, and it's time to start working on getting some hold down bolts in. Oh, and the hold down mount plate needs to go in as well. Right now it's just on the 16th inch ply former. I'm gonna put epoxy on the plate, and then I'm gonna place the plate in position and then bring the wing in to ensure the proper position. Then remove the wing and add some more clamps. So I need a little bit of working time, so I'm using 30-minute epoxy. In the next update, we work on the underwing belly pan and we get the wing rear mounting blocks in place.